Theme is my favorite literary concept to study and teach. To me, themes are what make stories worthwhile. You may not realize it, but themes are what you enjoy most about your favorite books and films. But theme is a difficult concept for students, and to be fair, it isn't entirely your fault. Changes in English curriculums over the last few years have put less emphasis on studying theme in order to focus more on research and language analysis, so students haven't gotten as much practice with theme as in the past. But that seems to be changing now. New curriculums are including more analysis of theme in earlier grade levels, which I think is great. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to analyze for theme, and to help us out, I'll be using the film Avengers: Infinity War for some examples, because it has a great storyline and some surprisingly complex themes. So yes, there will be spoilers in this video, but if you haven't seen Infinity War by now, you probably don't care. So let's get started. Before we discuss how to identify themes, we need to all be clear on what a theme is and what it is not. A theme is an author's commentary on a particular subject through their story. Many people get themes confused with topics. A topic is a general issue that the story addresses, but it doesn't provide commentary like a theme does. An easy way to remember this is that a topic is one word, but a theme is a sentence. So for example, you can't say that jealousy is a theme. Jealousy is a topic. The theme is whatever the author is trying to tell us about jealousy through the course of the story. In order to analyze for theme, you actually have to start by finding the topics addressed in the story. I like to make a list of as many topics as I can think of. For example, Infinity War deals with several topics: loyalty, love and friendship, heroism, sacrifice, even humanity's strain on natural resources. These are all topics, general, broad issues, but a theme provides commentary. A theme is what the author is telling the reader or audience about these topics. What does the author want us to take away from this story about these issues? Sometimes topics can overlap in theme commentary. For the purposes of today's video, I'm going to focus on the topic of sacrifice for our theme analysis, because I think it has the most complexity and its commentary extends into the second film, Endgame, so you can keep up your own theme discussion beyond this video. The process for determining the theme of a particular topic has three basic parts. First, the story opens with the author presenting some kind of moral dilemma that the central characters are struggling with. The topics are the focus of the moral dilemma, and there may be more than one. The more moral dilemmas in a story, the more complexity to the themes. In Infinity War, the characters struggle with the moral dilemma of choosing between sacrificing their friends or saving the universe from Thanos. Next, over the course of the plot, the story presents options for solving the moral dilemma. We'll look at a few examples of those in just a minute, of various characters who are directly faced with the choice of sacrificing someone or something they care about for the greater good. Finally, the story ends with some kind of resolution to the moral dilemma. As readers and viewers, we must consider how the author or filmmaker chooses to resolve the dilemma. Which of the options we saw earlier does the author seem to be endorsing or criticizing through the conclusion? In order to find these answers, we need to take a closer look at our plot evidence. Once you've identified topics to focus on, your next step is to look for textual evidence related to the topic. Now, for most students, I know that you hear the words textual evidence and think, quotations! Fair enough. That is usually the case. But with theme, it is actually easier to use moments of plot or characters as evidence rather than just quotations. Find moments of the story that deal with your chosen topic. It is important to look at plot moments from throughout the story, and especially the end, to note the development and resolution of the moral dilemma. There are many scenes in Infinity War that address the topic of sacrifice. Early in the film, Vision is prepared to let Wanda destroy the Mind Stone, in effect killing him, in order to prevent Thanos from getting it and thus saving the universe. Thanos sacrifices his favorite adopted daughter, Gamora, in order to claim the Soul Stone. Doctor Strange assures Tony Stark that he will gladly sacrifice Tony and Peter Parker if it means saving the Time Stone. And Tony Stark, who I would argue is one of the most complex and interesting characters, is actually driven by fear of sacrifice, of not being able to save someone he loves. The next step in your theme analysis is to look closely at these plot moments and try to determine what the author is trying to say about the topic through these moments. I find that with this step, it is helpful to discuss the scenes and possible commentary with someone else. Let's look at our example scenes. Vision is prepared to sacrifice himself to prevent Thanos from getting the Mind Stone, but only Wanda is strong enough to destroy it. Wanda loves Vision so much that she is unwilling to sacrifice him, even though it would save the universe, and Steve Rogers agrees with her that sacrificing Vision is off the table. The team spends the entire movie trying to find a way to destroy the stone while also saving Vision, but Wanda and Vision realize only their mutual sacrifice can stop Thanos. Wanda fights this sacrifice until the last possible moment, when they seem to have no other choice. This was a heartbreaking scene, because by this point, it was too late. Wanda destroyed the stone, killing Vision in the process, but Thanos already had the Time Stone, and so was able to undo her and Vision's sacrifice, using it to destroy them both. On the other hand, Thanos did not hesitate to sacrifice his daughter Gamora to claim the Soul Stone. It was equally difficult and heartbreaking for him, but he did it for his idea of the greater good. Both of these scenes seem to be suggesting that we must sacrifice those we love for the greater good, but that's only half our evidence. Let's keep looking. Doctor Strange says early on that he will sacrifice anyone in order to protect the Time Stone. He seems to be of the same cold, rational mindset as Thanos, sacrifice one person to save many. However, towards the end of the film, as Thanos is beating Tony Stark to a pulp, Doctor Strange tells Thanos that he will give him the Time Stone if he spares Tony. Tony argues that Strange should let him die to save the stone, but Doctor Strange hands over the stone, saying it was the only way, which of course takes on so many more meanings once you've seen Endgame. Doctor Strange ends up sacrificing his desires because he trusts that good will come from it. Tony Stark is driven through most of the films by his fear of sacrificing those around him, or not being able to save the ones he loves. He uses all his brains, money, and technology to develop ways to protect everyone he cares about. In Infinity War, he is desperate to stop Thanos before he can hurt Pepper, Peter, or anyone else Tony cares about. He is ultimately unsuccessful as he watches Peter fade into dust and is left wondering if Pepper survived. His thematic arc is continued in Endgame and gets so much more complex and interesting, but I'll leave that for you to wonder about. After looking at each individual scene carefully, you want to analyze what the author may be trying to suggest about the topic. This is the point when I find it helpful to talk things out with someone else. You want to consider not only what happens in each scene, but also who the author or filmmaker seems to want you to sympathize with. Which characters are we meant to support or oppose? And how does that help shape the commentary on sacrifice? Thanos and Doctor Strange's situations both seem to suggest that we need to be willing to sacrifice others for the greater good. Vision also follows this mindset, although he is prepared to sacrifice himself to save others. Tony Stark, Wanda, and Steve Rogers all resist sacrificing others, even if it could provide a positive outcome. And as audience members, we obviously sympathize with them because we don't want to see any of our heroes sacrificed either. Are these scenes contradicting each other? Don't forget what I said about considering the story's ending. Look for that final theme punch. I noticed two that relate to sacrifice. Doctor Strange finally relents and hands over the Time Stone at the end of the film in order to save Tony, choosing to go back on his earlier decision to protect the stone at any cost. And of course, that final scene with Wanda and Vision has major thematic impact. She is finally willing to help him sacrifice himself, but only when it is too late, and she has to watch as his sacrifice is undone and leads directly to the tragic conclusion of the film. So what is the filmmaker suggesting? Should they be willing to sacrifice others? Should they fight it? Should they have just gone to Wakanda earlier? Once you have looked at your plot moments and debated them individually, then you want to take all that information and try to draft a statement of the complete story's theme. What is the author ultimately suggesting about sacrifice in this story? This step can take a while because you need to be careful of your wording. Don't try to rush through this. Write a draft of the theme statement, read it over, and see if it really says what you mean. Consider revising the wording to make it more specific or clear. Don't settle for a quick cliché statement. Be sure that your statement is true to the story you have just read or seen. For example, Infinity War and its conclusion Endgame seem to suggest that our true power and virtue comes from an acceptance of the necessity of sacrifice at times, and a willingness to release our own fear or desires for the good of those we love and protect. This is what I take from this storyline, but what do you think? Of course, we can't always know if our theme statements are truly what the author intended, because usually we don't have access to the author in order to ask them what their theme ideas were. The best we can do is savor a story, consider the evidence, debate our findings, and draw our interpretive conclusions. But I think this is what makes themes so interesting to discuss. You can debate different scenes in the story, consider how those scenes affect the commentary, and share what you've learned or taken away from the story. Avengers: Infinity War and its sequel Endgame teaches audiences a lot about sacrifice and how far people will go to save the ones they love. For me, themes like that are what truly make stories worthwhile and memorable and so valuable to our culture and world.